Hello, my name is Jim Wendler. I'm the author and creator of 531. Today we're talking about my favorite subject, and that is me. Specifically the bench press and what exercises, ideas, and programming helped me. Please understand that my bench press has been and always will be poor. It was horrible. Now this is a result of a lot of things. When I first started training, I was in 8th grade. And all the way up through college, everything I did was training for sport. So at a very young age, I was taught that sports are all about your legs, being explosive, being in great shape. So everything I did was usually related to squatting, cleans, running hills, sprints, box jumps, anything and everything in between. So all that stuff is what I focused on. Everything like upper body work, bench press, incline, anything like that was just an afterthought in my training. And honestly, if I'm going to be, truthful, I stunk at the bench press and all the upper body lifts, so I never really cared about them. I gave myself a really dumb excuse that, if I squatted X, Y, and Z, it didn't really matter how much I bench pressed or did chin-ups or anything like that. But if I'm truthful about this too, I'm lucky, because if I was going to be lopsided in one area, it's best to be lopsided in the legs and lungs rather than the chest and the arms. However, when I started powerlifting, this quickly caught up with me. After high school, I started playing college football, and while we did a lot more upper body training than I did in high school, it was again not a huge priority. I just kind of went through the motions and just kind of wished for a bigger bench press. And it wasn't until my final year of college football that I discovered Westside Barbell, Louis Simmons, and powerlifting. Now, I always heard of powerlifting, but I didn't really know much about it except for the bench, squat, and deadlift. So I did some research on the internet. And remember, this was about 1998, 1999 or so. There wasn't a whole bunch on there, but I read a lot of Louis' articles, and a lot of it made sense to me. It appealed to me as an athlete. Since I was already fairly fast and explosive, and he talked about dynamic day and how important that was. And the thought of getting to max out every Monday and Wednesday was pretty exciting to me as also. So I read all I could. I figured out the Westside Barbell program, which is incredibly easy to figure out, and I got to work. And in this time, about a year and a half or so, my deadlift just skyrocketed. My squat was and my bench barely moved at all. I think I went from about 390 to maybe 400 in this time, and I was kind of expecting a lot more, especially since I hadn't really concentrated on it. But I was really hammering my weak points, which in all the articles and anyone I kind of read was all about the triceps. And how the triceps were always weaker than the chest and shoulders, and they were probably correct. Now at that point, you have to understand I was incredibly ignorant about powerlifting. I did not know there was bench shirts or anything like that. I knew guys wore singlets or maybe something that was a little tight. But I didn't realize how important bench shirts were in this training, and more specifically the lockout. After I got done playing college football, I moved to Lexington, Kentucky, and I started working at the University of Kentucky in the football weight room. I was training alone at this time, and every Sunday morning I would go to the football weight room and do my speed bench workout. Everyone knows that Sunday is speed day. So one Sunday I really had an honest talk with myself. I asked myself why my bench was so effing horrible. And then I realized that a lot of Louis' articles were written with an advanced lifter in mind, and a lot of them referenced some great advanced lifters that they had at Westside Barbell. And most of these guys, well, all of them had a tremendous pressing background, and some of them even had a bodybuilding background when they first started. I didn't have any of that. Everything I did was legs and lungs up until that point. And you have to understand too that the overhead press was the devil. You never would overhead press in powerlifting. It was horrible for your shoulders. You're going to tear everything out. Not good. So after I did my 8 to 10 sets of 3? 8 sets of 3, whatever it was, 8 sets of 3 at 205 or 225. I went to go test to see if my shoulders were in fact a strong point. I loaded the bar and I failed miserably at pressing 135 pounds over my head. I could not do it. And it was at that point I realized I don't have any weak points because I have no strong points. I was weak everywhere. And I realized I had committed the cardinal sin of training. I thought I was too good for basic weight training. So on the day that I missed a 135-pound overhead press, I made a pledge to myself. I said, if I wanted to bench press 405 pounds, I needed to press 405 pounds over my head. I figured if I could do a 405 strict press, I could bench press 405. And that day I got to work. I made a resolution. I had no more weak points. Everything was weak. Now I was benching or doing bench stuff, exercises twice a week. Sunday was speed day, as everyone knows, and Wednesday was max effort day. On both those days, right after I did the main movement of the day, I would pick, we'll go over these movements in a little bit. I'll pick one exercise and do 50 to at least 100 reps in that area of that one movement. There was high reps, there was low reps. I didn't really have a plan. All I wanted to do was just smoke the shit out of my shoulders, basically, and my chest. What exercises did I do? The three main things that I did, I checked my training log for this, was the strict press, the press overhead. Everyone knows what that is. The chain suspended push-ups, and I did them always with a band behind my neck, usually with a green band or an average band around my neck, held in my hands around my neck or my back. And any kind of full range dumbbell pressing. This could be steep incline, 45-degree incline, or flat bench. This is the result. We're going to go into this a little bit more, but I want to tell you the result. It took me 7 years to go from 300 to 400. Now, a lot of that time, there were some injuries in there. I had some medical issues. I had Graves' disease, which kind of screwed up. I was playing football. So there's a lot of things that went in there. But when I started doing this, in 3 months, my bench press went from 400 to 440. A month later, I bench pressed 455 pounds. Remember, this is all raw. There's no shirts involved. Now, when you do these movements, or when I did these movements, it wasn't just enough to do them. I did them with so much focus. I need to really drive this home so you guys understand this. On the way down, it was always under control. I kind of gathered the energy of the bar. I wouldn't just drop it. I would gather the energy of the bar. I would then pause slightly at the bottom. And from that point, I would drive like hell, getting the bar up, dumbbells up, or lifting my body in the case of the push-ups. And then I would hold it at lockout, smoke that rep, total control. And I realized that when I did every one of those reps, I pictured myself bench pressing 500 pounds. Every rep was done with focus and with explosion. I didn't just go through the reps half-assing. It was with a really good purpose. And this was as much of a mental exercise as it was a physical exercise. I realized that it didn't matter how strong my lockup, my triceps were, if I couldn't get the barbell up there in the first place. And essentially, this is what I trained. I trained the bottom half of my bench press, my shoulders and chest. This is the normal place where most people stall on the bench press because of the strength curve. That's just common sense. And I realize this is very similar to golfing. You often hear guys say that driving is for show and putting is for dough. And while for professional or advanced golfers, this is definitely true, if it takes you 10 to 15 hits to get to the green, it doesn't matter how good you putt, you stink. So I started applying the no weak points, no strong points to other areas of my training, like the squat and deadlift. And I started making up these ridiculous ideas. For example, if I couldn't do 405-pound lunge for 38 reps per leg, my quads were weak. If I couldn't do a glute ham raise with 225 pounds on my back for 32 reps, my hamstrings and glutes were weak. So unless you're truly strong, you can't really afford to ignore certain basic movements. Now, weak point training is still used as a phrase today, and it does have merit, especially for advanced or super strong athletes. But honestly, I see a lot of people use this term, and I think it's kind of cliquish, and they try to use it to sound knowledgeable. But the bottom line is your bench, squat, and deadlift is usually not failing or not going up because of some odd unknown movement. The truth is you're just not very strong. All right, let's wrap this up and bring it home. We'll start with the practical stuff first. The best thing to ever help my bench press was just to hammer the full range shoulder and chest assistance movements at least twice a week. These were done for 50 to 100 total reps. I would pick one movement per day and just beat the crap out of it. This would include weighted and unweighted push-ups. You could use a weight vest, a band, chain suspended, whatever you want to do. Push-ups, dips, the barbell press, any kind of dumbbell pressing movement. You can stand and do dumbbell presses, any incline, flat, and make sure you do each and every set and rep with extreme purpose. Again, I've said this earlier today, and I say it a million times when I'm coaching. Control on the way down, slight pause, explode on the way up. Total control. Every rep should be focused. You should, when you're doing the press, for example, it should be pressing with the force and intensity is what you'd like to bench or press overhead, like as a max. That has to be in your head at all times. It's as much mental as it is physical. And of course, keep training your arms, your biceps, triceps, upper back, and lats. Do not ignore those things. Those things are weak too, so keep pushing those hard. Now for the big general overview. You don't have weak points if you don't have strong points. And most of us aren't that strong, and we can't afford to micromanage all the little stuff. And we're never too good for big basic movements. So as an example, one of my good friends who was strong as hell and still is fairly strong, he still hammers the dips and the chin-ups, and he puts on a 45-pound vest and does 5 to 10 sets of each and just smokes the hell out of his upper body, and that's after he benches or presses. Be consistent, be patient, and remember, Bobby Newport has never had a real job in his life.